Ah, hello, my dear friends, and welcome to this flip through of a beautiful book, New Orleans, Elegance and Decadence. It's a beautifully bound book, the kind of book that if you saw sitting on the coffee table, you would be instantly drawn to, with this lovely colonial-esque image, really encapsulating the culture of New Orleans. I'm really interested to go through this book with you. It's the first time for me. New Orleans has always been a city I have been endlessly fascinated by. Such beautiful architecture, history, culture, a real mix and a melting pot. The food. I have never been myself, but would love the opportunity to visit one day. I absolutely love the media and the art that is created off the back of and inspired by this fantastic city. A Streetcar Named Desire, fantastic play. The Princess and the Frog, wonderful Disney animation, and of course Red Dead Redemption 2, the city of Saint Denis, clearly inspired by this beautiful old city. Let's take a look inside. What do we see? It's a very wordy book. Look. New Orleans. The Venice of North America. That's quite an apt description if you ask me. And look at this. The original city being a very, very small little rectangle by this river. The Mississippi River, of course. Mississippi, Mississippi, Mississippi River. I'm assuming the city grew. Yes, look, original city founded in 1718. So tiny, so small. And then this area developed prior to 1862. And then the area developed 1862 to 1900. Expands further along the river. It is amazing how quickly and widely cities expand into these areas, don't you think? Let's have a look at what else we can see as we just dive into... look at that. When New Orleans was the capital of the Spanish province of Louisiana, the city bore the name Calle de San Luis. What's really interesting is that I've visited many places in Spain that have exactly the same street signs. The city of Cartagena in the south of Spain, the port city, and Murcia has these wonderfully tiled and colourful colourful street signs. Ah, look. A steamboat. Exactly what I'd associate. A late afternoon winter sun warms the Chartres street side of the lower Pontalba building and its downriver neighbour. The gallery in the foreground and those across the street show how New Orleanian buildings open out to the street from the privacy of their upper stories. Such beautiful buildings, wouldn't you say? I would love to live in a building like this. It's wonderful. That plantation colonial style. You do see these buildings actually in London occasionally. I think you can see terraced houses, particularly in the east of London, which is, interestingly enough, a port part of the city. And of course, all of this architecture that one day would have been considered for workers and workmen is now very much the domain of the wealthy. It's always so interesting how architecture changes hands like that over time. Some beautifully posed photos, staged and framed. Wow, look at the vibrant colours. A Creole period colour scheme of French red, mustard yellow, putty and Egyptian blue enlivens the rusticated facade of the circa 1836 Nathan Louis Zizek house in Marigny. American Greek revival houses had uniform white walls with dark green shutters. I didn't know that. Such a melting pot of different cultural influences. The white Grecian influence, the vibrant red, yellow and blue of Creole. I think Creole cuisine is absolutely wonderful. I remember as a child being introduced to jambalaya and just wanting to eat it every single day. What a beautiful window. Imagine that being your view, getting a book and just being able to look out onto this vegetation. What does this store sign say? Open most days about 9 or 10, occasionally as early as 7, but some days as late as 12 or 1. We close about 5:30 or 6, occasionally about 4 or 5, but sometimes as late as 11 or 12. Some days or afternoons we aren't here at all, and lately I've been here just about all the time except when I'm someplace else. That sounds like the kind of store sign you'd get in Alice in Wonderland. I wonder what Bobby D, the shopkeeper, is like. Benny's bar on Valence Street uptown occupies what was probably once a corner grocery store. Yes, I've seen many of these represented in popular media and art. I think of the game Mafia 3, of course again set in New Orleans City, and of course the base of operations for the family that the game is based on. Benny Benny's Bar, Benny's Bar, Benny's Bar, Benny's Bar. Wow, okay. Now look at this. Wow, look at the colours here. The Mario Villa Gallery. It's an art gallery. I thought for a moment that would be a bedroom or a hotel room. The artisan, the Epicurean, and the antiquarian are woven through New Orleans' urban fabric. Music, art, food, and antiques are all things New Orleanians love and do so well. That is likely what attracts me so much to the city and its culture. It's that mix, that wonderful mix. More examples of artwork. Just gorgeous. It's so interesting. I've been to places in Greece, and we were talking earlier about American Greek influence, and this is saying here that the courtyard houses French glazed pottery and a white saloir salting jug. It's a French provincial style, but I'm also getting very strong Greek vibes from door openings like this. It's the kind of courtyard you may see in a small muse setting in Santorini or Kefalonia, Crete, or any of the other Greek islands. There we have, of course, the Creole colours here. Beautiful. So vibrant. They almost don't look real, do they? They look like cartoony in their boldness. And there we have the Greek example, a Greek revival triple cottage. I love things like this. A rare old-fashioned Cypress cistern made about 1940. It's so lovely. In England, you often now see water cisterns something like this, just being huge, brutalist concrete structures that tower over a local residential area. And I just love this rustic, small scale water system. Look, mausoleums and the graveyards of New Orleans. San Luis Cemetery, number 1, is honoured to have the tomb of Homer Plessy. This is the tomb of Homer Plessy. Décédé le 1 mai 1925, âge de 63 ans. I'm not going to pretend to recall French numbers, but it was this proud New Orleanian of colour who pursued for 4 years and lost the case of Plessy v. Ferguson, whereby in 1896 the US Supreme Court sanctioned a half-century of racial segregation. A very dark and complex history in humanity's history. But it would seem like the individual individuals such as Homer Plessy and many others were determined for justice and equality, and their names live on, as we read about them now, of course. A lovely wrought iron gate here in St. Louis Cemetery. Now, I absolutely love this shabby chic, deteriorating interior that you have here, with the paint coming away, the moody and mysterious rear stair hall of the Casseynard on Toulouse Street leads to a living quarters over a ground floor shop in this old Creole porte-cochère townhouse. Lovely chandeliers, beautiful portraits. I wonder what kind of person lives here. Here are some lovely examples of religious art and others. A golden drape adorns a picture depicting the mystical marriage of St. Catherine and the Christ child. Atop Villemare's console table is a draped raku urn and two villa-designed lamps. And this tattered covering of this 18th century French chair has its original coverings. I'm a big fan of raku as well, that wonderful Japanese art of repair, not repair, that's not raku, of course using burning things such as horsehair to etch onto a ceramic pot or vase or urn. Fantastically wild images. Can you imagine waking up and just seeing the sunlight, the sleepy sunlight just beaming in through these curtains as they sway gently in the hot, sultry breeze? Wonderful. And look at this, the elegance of decay is clearly evident in this detail of the bedroom mantelpiece. The textured, painterly effect of layers of peeling paint show a reverence for time's ability to slowly transform things in a way that no deliberate intervention could. The statue to the left, draped with black Mardi Gras beads, came from Sakabo's mother's shop. A broken crown-shaped sign from an old antique store stands in the centre, and the Mardi Gras mask to the right was made by Dawn Dedeaux, a friend of Sakabo's. Fantastic. I love this Carnival Mardi Gras artifacts and items. Look at this old country-like kitchen. What's so interesting is that if you were to visit a living museum in the United Kingdom, say in Birmingham, or an old Victorian living museum, the kitchens would look very similar to this layout. And I suppose they take a lot of inspiration from singular sources. So, for example, here, French ivory toilet articles, a lot from France, influencing our bathrooms and our toilets for hundreds of years. Thank you, France. Such a lovely colour. The fresh Paris green of the bedroom makes this river-facing room seem cooler than it does. It's a wonderful colour scheme. And this lovely... what is this? Collects old lattice clothes. It's a clothes hamper. Okay. So where you would place clothes into... oh, of course, here's the top. This is where you would put your laundry. A lovely example of West Indian Spanish cedar from the early 20th century. It was found in a dumpster. Wow, who would throw that away? It's gorgeous. I always have such a thing for red rooms. It's such a bold colour to choose for a room. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It can be very aggressive as a colour, I think, but here you've got such a warm colour, and this is such a fantastic sculpture. What is this sculpture here? We've got information about the rug. Here we go. The flambeau carrier in the foreground is a maquette for a life-sized papier-mâché statue made by Joe Barth, a Carnival float designer and builder. I just get the impression that there are all of these fantastic float builders, props designers, costume makers just living opposite one another, and all they do is produce this wonderful, rich, celebratory art. Here we have, it looks like the home of George Deroux, an artist. His spacious studio here is a live-work space. His paintings line the wall. Heirlooms and hand-me-downs as well. Lovely furnishings within the room too. A four-poster bed. And these fantastic columns. What an eclectic mix. I'd absolutely love to sit down with George Deroux and just watch him work and watch him live in this space. Here are his sketches. And a tabletop here with still life on a paisley shawl. A wonderful bouquet of dead flowers as an invitation to the Rex Carnival Ball. And some gifts here, a wooden bowl from New Guinea, pottery figurines from Costa Rica. Quite a modern space, in a way. A mix of modern and old with this almost Scandinavian style table layout, quite minimalist in the facilities, melding into his studio space. Oh, aren't they fantastic? A crowd of miniature treasures, many related to the theme of music. The clutter keeps people from putting drinks down on the antique table. Well, there you have it, my friends. If you want to stop people from marking your furniture by placing drinks down, simply fill it with trinkets. It's a fantastic conversation starter and also looks fantastic. Oh, look at that. That's gives you almost like servant quarter vibes from old English houses there. There are some New England cane seats. I thought they looked very familiar to me, so I'm assuming that New England furniture has its heritage in English furniture and design. That would make sense to me as being New England. It had a four-bedroom building, a kitchen and workroom on the first floor, and two equal-sized bedrooms reached by exterior staircases. This internal staircase here made room for a bathroom. What a lovely chair. An 18-year-old artist. A high-back Chippendale chair depicting Banshee, a little girl blowing bubbles that become clouds in the sky. That's lovely. We can just see here all of these artists' rooms, and they're fantastic. Look at that. A lovely kimono from Kyoto. Just really frames the piece. It looks almost iconic. Anglophile and Francophile New Orleans. I wonder how he gets on, given the historical, stereotypical bad blood between the two nations. In this clubby city, he has light-heartedly formed his own club, the Society of St. George, which celebrates the Queen's birthday each June in grand style. Rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth. Not just anyone can join, of course, says Dyer. A person must have the right pedigree, be recommended by a member, and meet the rigid requirements of the nominating committee. And since I am a strong believer in monarchy, I am the nominating committee. Well, what do you think, friends? Do you think I would pass? I would get a place in the club, the Society of St. George. Maybe if Mr. Dyer encounters this video, he could get in touch and invite me to join. I think that would be a great foot in the door of the city, don't you? Imagine walking into a home and just seeing a huge alligator. I suppose alligators play a big role in this part of the world in terms of that natural element, the culture of the bayou and the swamplands and the wetlands. The alligator is a persistent presence in this part of the world. Just such wonderful lighting and arts and crafts. I could get lost in this book. In fact, I will get lost in this book and enjoy it with a nice cup of tea and a dark room. A clawfoot bathtub is home to 3 plastic manta rays from a tourist shop in Pas Christian. I bought these just for fun, says Posh. Well, they are very fun. And that is one incredible bed spread, the tent room. I can see that papier-mâché is a common media for art in this city. The Gold Stars once decorated a 12th night party. There we are, some Shakespearean influence there as well. If this bed could talk, says Bourget, we'd have to shoot it. The fine curly maple veneer armoire to the left is filled with fancy costumes. I'd love to open that up and have a real fantastic party. You can really see this melting pot of music and religion, disrepair. It's just such a fascinating melting pot of different cultural ideas. Here we have greenery, verdant enclaves, lovely foliage. I love how no matter what you do, nature will always find a way to reclaim its territory. It's hard not to garden in New Orleans, as garden historian Charlotte Seidenberg notes. If you do nothing, nature will eventually provide her own garden. That's absolutely right, Seidenberg. It absolutely does. I spent many a back-breaking afternoon removing this very detritus from my driveway, only to have to return to it seemingly the next week to start it all over again. Such a welcoming lattice door, a lovely garden there in the Bayou St. John neighborhood. Lovely sand-appled elephant ear plants. Wow, look at that, a maroon blossom and a young banana fruit in an uptown garden. Now again, this is the kind of thing that really fascinates me, because you simply don't see this kind of naturally occurring greenery where I live. You have oak trees, yew trees, you have lovely trees and hedgerows and greenery, but it's so exotic to me, this wonderful elephant leaf exotic it seems to me. I'm a very simple man when it comes to the quality of greenery in a local area. Such beautiful colours there, these petunias, geraniums, oleanders, draping wall jasmine, lovely colour splashed world of a university district garden. Fantastic. Now that's lovely. Look at that, mirrors mounted on the wall and converging boards recede into the distance to create an illusion of depth. They certainly do. That's a wall behind that planter, but it looks like it extends for a very long way. Now that is a bit creepy. Religion seems earthier, more emotional, almost animist in New Orleans. A side room at the chapel at St. Roch Cemetery is filled with ex-votos, representations of various parts of the body, left by grateful believers whose prayers have been answered. That is a very interesting way of showing that your prayer has been answered. I would think a thank you letter or a nice card would suffice. But no, here people leave behind parts of their body in ceramic or plaster form. These altars, somebody has built an altar in their workspace. Again, such a interesting blend of art and religion. Quite often now in this day and age, it feels like art and religion don't often mix that regularly, or at least mix in everyday life for artists. So much British art that is given the time of day in this modern age, which I love, is of course anti-establishment and going against the grain and rallying against history and tradition. But it's very interesting here to see the melting pot of religion and art mixing together. Oh wow. Oh, okay, so this is Carnival, look. Carnival in motion, hallucinatory movement, metamorphosis, temporary change and transformation. That's what Carnival is about. A giant grinning ram's head is a faithful papier-mâché recreation of a walking head. That's a mask worn by a parader. Wow. Could you imagine coming out and seeing that? Torchlight parades, performing a special dance as they light the way for the parades. That's interesting. I didn't know that you had people carrying flames. Look at this. Wow. A strange amalgams of the sacred and profane appear at Carnival. This giant papier-mâché walking figure of an African elephant wearing a crown and carrying a crucified lizard was designed by Henry Schindler, the art director and float builder for the Mystic Crew of Darwin Parade of 1873. Wow. Throw me something, mister. A curtain of Mardi Gras beads forms a theatrical backdrop for a masked float rider tossing out souvenir cups. It's so interesting. It seems like, I've been to places such as Gozo and Malta where I think of religious ceremonies and processions and parades moving their way through the towns as the townsfolk stand either side of a street and the procession makes their way with decorations and statues and icons and costume. But here it seems to have taken on a completely almost dream-like It's almost as though you're experiencing a religious festival that you've fallen asleep during, and the spirits have awoken you to such an incredible cacophony of sound and sight. Wow, I was not expecting that to be the kind of adornments for a king and queen of the day. Each carnival crew selects one of its members to be king for a day, and the sovereign then chooses a young woman to be his queen. After a parade through the streets and the presentation of a tableau at a ballroom, the coronation of the queen takes place. Then all dance at a grand masquerade ball. One queen, queen forever, is an old carnival motto. Wow, I thought that were an actual crown there for a moment. So that's a very quick flick through what is a very comprehensive and beautiful book, exploring New Orleans, a dreamy poem of a book. I agree. I can't wait to read it before bed. A look into the city's soul. Fantastic. I love how even this image of the degrading, dilapidated wall just made me think that there is a flaw in this book. It tricked me. So that was New Orleans, Elegance and Decadence. Thank you for joining me, friends, through this exploration of such a wonderful book. And I'll see you next time.